we do have a request for 3 excused absences. Barrett has had some recent leg surgery, so he's injured and actually surgery, I think, was just yesterday, so he's recovering. Robert is out of town for work-related items, and Marinelle Ubaldo, who is our newest member, replacing Reverend Taylor, is out of the country, so she will be joining us soon. All 3 have requested excused absences. If someone would like to consider. Motion, second by Ian. All right, all in favor? Excuse me. Okay, all right, thank you all for that. We have the minutes of approval. Scott has sent those minutes in our package. Would like to have a motion to approve, and then if we need to discuss, we can. Motion to approve by Samantha. Oops, second by Nicola. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, all right, all in favor of approving? Okay, so approved. Public comment period. I don't know if we have no one signed up at this point and no one online that's seeking to speak. You'd have to, it's an in-person meeting, sorry. So here we go. Oh, I will go back to, since this is an in-person meeting being recorded, I'm very sorry for this. I did not read this at the very beginning. I should read this. It is a city notice. This meeting is being recorded by video and audio means. These recordings will be posted on the city's website for public viewing and listening. In-person attendees of this meeting will be included in this recording. By remaining in this meeting, in-person attendees agree that their images and or voices may be included in these recordings. I did everybody know. Sorry for out of order there. We have some time here in the agenda for city council liaison comments. Lee, you were here with us, so thank you for joining us.
Would you like to?
Yeah, however you'd like to speak, come on up.
Good afternoon, everyone. I know you're dying to hear about my cruise. No, because I'm on my way a lot of time. It was phenomenal, just so you know. We went to Jamaica and to Grand Cayman and Cozumel. Had a wonderful time. We actually also just got back from Kansas City. So as an interlocal trip, we went and visited Kansas City, which you'd think would be like opposite ends. Like, no, it was amazing. And watching and really learning about how they use their history and how they do adaptive reuse has been beautiful. We saw this library that was redone from an old bank. And so the bank where the vault was, it's a screening room where you can go and watch movies and stuff. And it was really, really beautiful. But really what struck me the most that I want to, it's not for you guys to figure out, is that when you walk in, everyone there had Kansas City pride. And it wasn't like the Chiefs, you know, like, I mean, I'm sure they love the Chiefs, but it was just Kansas City or KC. And we're all like, what is that? And they're like, we just love our city. And I was like, how do we do that here? What do we do? So we're trying to think of things. What is it? Is it the 919? People listen to that. Is it Raleigh? Is it Wake County? Is it the Triangle? So I don't know what this is going to be, but wanted to put that on your plate because it's really something that spoke to me in our visit. Now, something tailored more towards you guys. Unfortunately, in our last meeting, I know we talked and I went to council and I tried to get to see if we can move the public hearing to the 20th like we had voted on. It did get voted down. So I'm sorry, I was the only one that voted for that. So it will move forward, but I've already spoken with leadership and we'll make sure that we have your voice heard at council, whatever that is after today's meeting. Other than that, I think those are the only updates. We will be doing the budget soon, so please pay attention on May 20th. That does get released to us. And I think that was it, unless there's any questions. No? All right. Thank you so much
for being here. All right. We now have time for Planning Commission and SMAC liaison, kind of the joint learning of what's going on in the Planning Commission world. So Ben's here. Samantha has been talking to Ben about things. We will start with a series of whatever is kind of active and that we may or may not know about. Ben's going to try not to trip over there. Not good. And then we will finish this with the case at 8415 Honeycutt Road. We have asked the applicant to come and speak to us more specifically based on the feedback we got, we kind of all generated at the last meeting. So that's where we will end today with this section.
Yep. And that's my agenda, because that case is last, even though it's not last on the schedule. So kind of maybe it's when I moved it down to last, but I moved it to last because we do have a presentation from the applicant. So, start off with, there's, two cases at the planning commission. One is a rezoning, and then the other is that stormwater tax change authorization that got sent there. And then, 4 cases at city council interest. Starting with the planning commission cases. The first one was Z 7022. It's been around for a couple of years now, but they've been working on it for a while. Near Glenwood Avenue and Lake Ann, the interest of Lake Ann subdivision, if you know where that area is. The Lake Ann subdivision is actually outside of the city limits, just FYI, if you're wondering. But the area would be more of the vacant parcels kind of at the entrance to the subdivision there. It's currently zoned for NX3, just conditional use in OX3, which is basically commercial zoning limited to 3 stories, and then R2 and some conservation management. So it's big mismatch of all kinds of zonings, and the proposed zoning they'd be going to would be CX5, which would be commercial zoning that would like up to 5 stories, R10 conditional use, and keeping that conservation management that's already there. The stormwater conditions was, as listed currently, use of super silt fence, which is like a hardier silt fence to kind of help, sediment leaving site, third-party construction inspections as well, some specified details about SCMs, and pretty specific conditions about where they can outflow their stormwater. This did just ask for a 60-day time extension from city council, so the planning commission could continue to work on it. So these conditions could change before you see it again, just FYI. And that was granted by the council on April 15th. So that'll be planning at the planning commission until June or thereabouts, and then it'll get sent back to the city council. This is what it looks like currently. It's undeveloped. If you've ever driven by it, it's very wooded area. Next one is the stormwater text change that Sally Boyd talked to you about last meeting, basically changing the definition of developed by area to conform to state statute, and also to address residential lots over an acre. That this is set to appear on the May 21st text change committee of the planning commission's agenda. So that'll be our next step, and then from there it'll go to planning commission, and then eventually to city council to request a public hearing. So we're still some steps away, but it's moving forward and hasn't changed at all since, even with the attorneys that we know yesterday, it hadn't really changed. So there we go. Next one going to the city council, Villanova Center, just rezoning Z 3824. This one was approved on April 18th, and going up to, I'm not gonna go through the entire zoning stuff they have now. That's a lot of larger structures and commercial zoning and apartments and things like that. But main thing, just remember, is that it's part of the university's NPDES permit. So the stormwater permit is actually under their jurisdiction. We still have the flood permitting jurisdiction for the floodplain, and then we'll need to go to the state for any sort of loose river buffer encroachment they have. As I've heard, they do want to get into the loose river buffer out there with another entrance, but I've seen nothing bigger. And just FYI, the site is currently approximately 59% impervious, and I'm not sure they're looking to go beyond that, except for that community crossing. So, but that was approved on April 15th. Be there for game 3. Z1924 Edinburgh Drive. This is on Glenwood Avenue, just inside the Beltline. This is that area that's the 3 single-family lots that are zoned R6 currently, and the just rezoning is for a commercial zoning up to 3 stories, and it's these 3 lots going to a model home with parking, and eventually will again be 3 single-family lots, but the parking will take up the other 2 lots. Right now, the stormwater is headed towards Glenwood Avenue, and that's where it's gonna stay based on our forward design manual. There is a project, stormwater project, if you remember, down here that is not getting stormwater from this area, but it is down here. And if you drive by it, they do have a match grading permit to start land out there because they are doing some grading out there if you drive by this area. And that public hearing is scheduled for May 20th. Well, doesn't quite look like today, but they're grading it. And then the last one before the Honeycutt case is Z 4724, 2500 Barlow Road in the southeast section of town here. They are 43.67 acres, with main Walnut Creek on their property, currently zoned R4 manufactured housing, going to a proposed R10 conditional use, looking to develop townhomes there. Any residential development is prohibited north of Walnut Creek. And for our current UDO, the FEMA floodplain on site would not be allowed to be developed because it is vacant right now. So as our text sheet from a couple years ago. And right now, this public hearing is scheduled for May 20th as well. So essentially, they'll be keeping all their development in the non-floodplain area.
Can you remind me again? I know what year was it they had that text change?
2022.
So, I mean, yeah, and so beforehand, if they had not changed that, then they would have been able to develop in that area.
50% of this outer area.
Right. Right, so that's a pretty big improvement.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think a lot of times we see these text changes or, I think it's only again, an example like this. And
Yeah.
see the impact of it.
No, definitely. This is what it looks like. It's pretty much entirely wooded right now. So like I said, that's going to be carrying on May 20th. And this means in kind of a funky rhythm because of the way the week's laid out. We've only had one council meeting since our last SMAC meeting. So that's why all these are kind of like from April 15th.
And one more question on that, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is it can they also like take down the trees there as well? They just can't build development on them, make them impervious, or what was the restriction again?
They can't change the topo or anything like that. So technically they could take some trees down, but it'd be tough to do that and not change the topo, but they can do it.
Got it, okay, but
Yeah.
Most likely they would.
Most likely they will. I mean, I haven't seen their development plan, but from everything I've heard, they're looking to stay completely out of that area and everything north of the creek.
Yeah.
Except for like, and there's not even any sewer that way, but they were talking about a greenway trail.
Yeah.
And they can go through there, but the sewer, yeah, they left it turned on here just because it was odd. That it's not at the creek, which is good. It's kind of out here, so they'll be getting their sewer connections through here.
Yeah.
And not through the creek, like we see a lot of developments. Yeah. And the next one is the 3924, which is the Falls Lake watershed, 8415 Honeycutt Road. And I'll be real quick on this one because we have no presentation on it. But feel free to ask me questions or the applicant questions once they get through. Current zoning is R1 going to R6 conditional use, subject to the Falls Lake watershed regulations. Currently, no stormwater specific conditions. They are limiting their units to 56%, which is 2/3 of the allowable that they would have. The public hearing is scheduled for May 6th, as Councilor Jones alluded to, and just to kind of give you, just refresher is that our current regs for the Falls Lake is they have a max impervious of 30%, and anything above 24%, you must treat all your impervious using green stormwater infrastructure. And there are stricter limits for nitrogen, and we also have a limit for phosphorus, which is only in the Falls Lake and the Swift Creek. And also there's a 40% forestation requirement beyond the regular tree conservation. Overview of that. But with that, I'll probably hand it off to the applicant, who's Michael Birch.
Real quick, just clarification, forestation, tree conservation is, you have to save the trees.
Correct.
Forestation is you can replant.
You can technically plant, yes.
Okay.
That's why it's beyond the regular.
Okay, beyond.
Beyond the regular.
Got it. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Ben on the prior cases or so?
Yeah, anything for this one, but I'll be Second round of questions.
Thank you. Good.
Struggled to get the graphics where we had some sort of legend on the side that would tell me what the colors are.
Probable symbology.
Yeah.
Bro, yeah.
Yeah, just a thought.
Yes. Reminder.
Yeah, Ben, if we can get a little legend or key on some of the graphics in the future. Yeah. Thank you.
Ready? Great. Good afternoon. I'm Michael Birch with Longleaf Law Partners here on behalf of the applicant for rezoning case C3924 up at Honeycutt Road. Before I get into the presentation, just a little overview or kind of housekeeping first on the dates going forward. So yes, we are scheduled for city council public hearing the evening of Tuesday, May 6th. Just given conversations that we've had related to the multi-use path and kind of providing an easement over that, we expect to have the public hearing on the 6th, but then to ask for a deferral to May 20th so that we can add that condition and, you know, anything else that we discuss here today or other kind of subsequent conversations. So just, I know there was some discussion at the last council meeting about the public hearing date. It was scheduled for the 6th. Anticipate having that on the 6th, but we will be asking for a deferral to May 20th to update some conditions. So just wanted to put that on everyone's radar. So in terms of the rezoning request, and I don't know if there's somewhere I've got to point this here. Back there. In terms of the presentation, I want to kind of highlight the property, some background on it, give you a sense of our request, not just related to kind of stormwater, but just broadly speaking. Also, I know y'all recently discussed the case at Strickland Road, there next to the Harris Teeter. But also I think it would be helpful, and I'm going to provide a little bit maybe deeper history of some other cases in the two water supply watersheds, both the Falls and Swift Creek. So you can kind of get a sense of the history over multiple councils, really over the last, call it 12 or 13 years. I'll try and do that quickly, but just want to put this into context, broader context. So a little bit of overview, and I'll kind of highlight these on the subsequent slides. Both currently zoned, has been mentioned, R1 with the Falls Watershed Protection and Overlay District. So that R1 would essentially allow some kind of civic uses like a church, school, that would also allow from a residential standpoint, essentially 1 acre lots, maybe a little bit less, but a maximum of 14 lots, single family lots. We are just in our request. We are going to R6 conditional use. We do have a condition that limits our density to 4 units per acre. The reason for that is because of the Falls Lake area plan guidance that says no more than 4 units per acre. Future land use map, we are rural residential. And I just want to highlight, we are maintaining the Falls Watershed Protection Overlay District. Please skip a slide and I'll kind of come back to the conditions here. So Ben showed you kind of this map. Just to highlight, this is the Bent Tree neighborhood here to the west. So we're along Honeycutt, north of Falls, 540 up here. This is Lafayette Village, Lifetime Fitness here. So kind of everything on the north side of Falls and Strickland is within the secondary watershed area for the Falls. Again, current zoning. This is the future land use map. And then this is the end of comprehensive plan, right? We've got these area plans focused on specific areas. This one is the Falls Lake area plan. Again, you see kind of where this property is located. And again, there are a number of policies. This is the second policy. The first one is no new commercial development. Obviously, we're just limiting it to residential. The second policy relates to density up to 4 units per acre. When doing kind of a conservation subdivision, that really comes with 40% open space, and that's really covered under the Falls Watershed Protection Overlay District with the forestation requirement. And there is also a third policy that says max 30% impervious. Obviously, that's covered by the UDO provisions for the overlay district. So before I do that, just again, back on our case, we've been kind of working with our neighbors in Bentry, Cross Honeycutt, city transportation, a number of other departments over the past 9+ months. So again, the conditions as they sit today, max of 4 units per acre, which works out to 56 dwelling units. We're not allowing kind of stacked units. So it's really single family detached and townhomes. We are prohibiting an extension of a road from Bentry through the site out to Honeycutt, but in lieu of that, we are providing a multi-use path 10 feet wide from that termination in Bentry out to Honeycutt Road. That will provide access from Bentry out to Honeycutt, and then certainly from the proposed development, there's a greenway connection in Bentry, so it's kind of a mutually beneficial path there. We've also offered to provide some high-vis crosswalk across Honeycutt, although we're still in conversations with DOT. 2 conditions that are kind of environmentally related, 15% tree conservation. So the base requirement in R6 is just for 10% tree conservation. We've increased that to 15%. That 15% is actually what's required today under our current R1 zoning. So we wanted to maintain that. And then again, 30% open area. That is area that is outside any developed lot, any parking area, any street right of way, or anything else. The reason for that is sometimes forestation can be located on individual lots. But we wanted to kind of make clear that we would have a substantial set aside of open area that is outside of any developed lots. Again, then highlighted these, the first 4 here are provisions from the Falls Watershed Protection Overlay District. So up to a maximum of 30% impervious. Use of the GSI would exceed 24%, the forestation requirement of 40%, and then the natural resource buffer, that's 100-foot wide on either side of that street feature. Just for reference, we've got street feature that I believe is right in this area here, and then that flows this way. So we have that there, and so we'll have that 100-foot on either side. Yeah, just the 2 other conditions I mentioned. So just for some context, what I evaluated on these, I believe, 6 cases is what the zoning request was, whether it was consistent with the future land use map, whether it was consistent with the Falls Lake area plan guidance, and then whether there were conditions related to stormwater, kind of enhanced conditions. So first one up there is Lifetime Fitness. That was an old driving range, you may remember. That obviously was for a large commercial health club. So that was inconsistent with policy for no new commercial development in the watershed. And because of that, they added significant conditions related to stormwater, both detention, treatment, and even monitoring, and even an option where stormwater would get pumped out of the watershed, which was not an option taken as part of the development. The next one is down in the Swift Creek watershed, going from R1 to R10, they limited it to 6 units per acre, which was consistent with the Swift Creek land management plan. So that's different kind of from a policy standpoint than the Falls in some cases. And that had no conditions related to stormwater. 9121 Six Forks Road, that is kind of near the YMCA. It's just north of one of the churches closest to the Strickland Road intersection. That went to R10 and capped it at 5.4 units per acre. So that was in excess of the 4 unit per acre guidance in the Falls Lake area plan. So it's inconsistent. 2 conditions were related to providing some pervious pavers and then rain barrels on some of the lots. and that allowed townhomes. So before y'all reviewed the latest request on that Strickland Road property, there was one a few years prior to that where it went from R1 to R4 and limited its density essentially to single family lots. There was 20 lots on that 18 or so acre property, so 1.2. That was consistent with the area plan and had no conditions related to stormwater. Also, the one y'all recently reviewed going to R10, allowing up to about 180 apartments. And obviously had, so that was inconsistent with the area plan guidance. Obviously, y'all are well aware of the conditions that were added as part of that case. This last one on the list is back in Swift Creek. It got to council, expected approval, but prior to the vote, there were some contractual issues. We were working on the case, so familiar with it, and we ended up having to withdraw it, but very confident that it was going to be approved. Again, went to R10, capped it at 6 units per acre, because that's the guidance in Swift Creek for this new urban area. So it's consistent with the land management plan, did not have any conditions related to stormwater. So I think what you see through all of those cases is that where a request is consistent with the Falls Lake area plan guidance of 4 units per acre or less. There are really no, additional conditions over and above what's already required by the overlay district added to the case. It's where there's an inconsistency with that Falls Lake area plan guidance. Come back to this. So under current zoning, that R1, I think that we talked about, right? 14 large lot homes still allow up to 30% impervious surface. What we're asking for is 4 units per acre, up to 56 dwelling units, single family or townhomes. The reason we're going to that is because this is in an area that, one, has great transportation infrastructure. It also has walkable access to goods, services, office opportunities. So we think this is an appropriate location to provide some additional housing supply over and above just the 1 unit per acre large estate lots. We also think it's an opportunity for some housing variety. This area is all single family detached in this area. This is a unique opportunity to provide some townhome supply. So that is kind of the reason for the request to allow that 4 units per acre. So I just wanted to kind of give an overview of our request, put it in context of other cases that council has seen over the past 10 to 12 years in watersheds. And then certainly want to answer any questions, receive any comments that the commission may have.
Appreciate you
Yeah.
being here and the applicant. So
Yeah, absolutely.
thanks for taking the time. A question will touch just about your green infrastructure, your GSI approaches. Have you guys gotten into any, what you're looking at in the 24 to 40, bridge that gap between the 24 and 30% impervious?
Great.
Tree.
So I should have introduced him on the front end, Peter Knosson with Jones Knosson Engineering. So I'll let Peter speak to that.
Yes, I've done some preliminary work related to layout of the site, both from a single family perspective as well as townhomes. In each of those, I'm looking at using a dry pond in series with a bioretention device to handle all the stormwater. Basically using, and the other thing I'm looking at is whether basically the developer, they want me to explore underground detention in series with bio. So I'm looking at both. We're not sure what we're doing yet, but basically using the dry pond for your storage to meet the control, and then the bioretention for your quality.
And just to clarify, do you have a sense of what the max impervious will be on this site? Are you planning to go up to 30% and do that additional on-site GSI treatment, or are you limiting to 24% impervious? I'm not sure I caught that.
Yeah, so I think we expect to need to go up to that 30%. We have to provide a kind of city standard public street. Again, we're also providing that additional length of multi-use path and additional impervious there potentially. So, yeah, we anticipate doing that, going up to that 30%.
And just to give you like a rough number, I looked at the impervious for the public street with the greenway. It's roughly about 25% of the impervious is just in that public street.
25% of our allowable.
Of the allowable, yes. So we're needing that extra for the development. So.
I have one additional question, if it's all right, about just the consistency statements. I think it was really helpful, and thank you for that overview of historical cases. One question that I had is, I noticed that, I don't know if there was a case that we looked at in the historical list that was inconsistent with the flume, but consistent with the Falls Lake watershed plan. And I do think that is an interesting, unique element here, because this case is inconsistent with the future land use map.
That's right, yes. There's not one of these that has that inconsistent with the bloom, consistent with the area plan. So I'll speak to the inconsistency in this case with the future land use map. So we are rural residential, which says up to 1 unit per acre, but then it also has provision at the end, but could have higher densities when clustered, right? And again, we have had some of these cases, certainly the Strickland Road where we were exceeding, well, that was the 1.2 unit per acre. So that was just over the rural residential recommendation, but it was close and bound to be consistent. And so the others, again, Swift Creek's a little bit different because it's subject to a land management plan, but in this case, no residential was recommended because it was institutional, because it was on a church property. And Lifetime Fitness, actually that was rural residential. Again, that's why it was inconsistent with the flow. But in this case, again, we think with the 40% forestation requirement, with the 30% open area, yes, while the staff report says that we are inconsistent with the rural residential, we think we're meeting that intent by requiring a clustering with a substantial open space set aside there.
Do you mind saying that one more time, the open space being consolidated or just in general, just the ratio
Yeah.
there?
So I'll say that, so two things. One, there is a contiguousness requirement for forestation, where the overall total, no area can be less than 20% of that requirement. So there is, in terms of forestation requirement, kind of that having more than just a few standalone trees in this case. I'll just highlight here on the map here. So just from a development layout standpoint, to give you a sense, we have a road essentially coming in here and then terminating in this area here. So in terms of where we anticipate having two areas of open space, open area. That is a very large area down in this corner here. And then up this entire area here. So really, it's just kind of a double loaded street in this area here, with the open space really in two largely contiguous areas. And I'm contiguous, one on one side and one on the other side. So
Thanks for that detail, that helped.
Where would be the multi-use path from Bedtree?
So this is where Chatterson ends here. Let me see, maybe this is a better map, a little bit more zoomed in. So Chatterson ends right here. So we anticipate a multi-use path from Chatterson into here where we would have our public street would end in a cul-de-sac. And then we would have a multi-use path in our right of way, public right of way for the street. That would run from here all the way out to Honeycutt Road. So we would have a continuous 10-foot wide. And again, for this section right here, we intend to revise our condition to kind of put that within a public access easement. So it's the rights are clear that the public has a right to traverse that entire multi-use path from Venture out to the
Like, when you've had a neighborhood meeting or two,
So we knew how important this property was to Venture. We have had our 2 city required neighborhood meetings. We have also had 3 additional meetings with Venture and are in pretty constant communication with their HOA board. So, yeah.
So,
and access has been a primary conversation.
Yeah, I'd say
At least
90,
what I see of the condition, stormwater has not been a primary discussion.
that's correct. That's 95% of the attention, and this is certainly comes across in the public input portal that the city has for this case. You kind of go and see all the comments. I'd say 95% of the attention has been on not making a vehicular connection to Chatterson. Bent tree, kind of older subdivision, 20-foot wide, ribbon pavement, no curb and gutter, ditch section. It's hard to get 2 cars to pass, and it certainly when people park on the side, outside of the driveway on the road, really can only get 1 car at a time. So they, at our first neighborhood meeting, 100+ people, all no connection, and so that's really where the attention has been.
I'm just wondering, it sounds like you're taking some time to consider additional conditions and asking for a continuance. And so I'm wondering, are stormwater conditions something that you all would be willing to consider? I know that, I think you've really helpfully kind of elucidated some of the differences between the last case that we sort of saw as a commission in the Falls Lake watershed. So I just knowing where this is in the watershed and that it's at the headwaters of Honeycutt Creek, I think it would be beneficial to see some stormwater conditions, especially in the way of sediment and erosion control measures, that being a sensitive part of the watershed. But I know they also committed to things like planning for the 50-year storm rather than the required 10-year storm. And additional riparian buffers over and above the required 100-foot. So I don't know if other commission members have thoughts on that, but personally, I think it would be great to see some stormwater conditions added in, given the solution.
Great. Yeah, were there any, that was, you say this, we, from the beginning, have been transparent and overly communicative with Venture as part of the desire to be a good neighbor. The 2 developers on this case, both born and raised in North Raleigh. One of them lives in the watershed just on the north side of Strickland down a little bit further, and one's very close to here. And so the whole time, this case has been about being a good neighbor and also a good steward of this property. So I think, yes, the applicants are open to adding conditions that they are able to add. And I think that related to stormwater, certainly erosion control as well. I think before I say anything else, you kind of hit, kind of the sediment control, buffers downstream, and the detention. Just wanted to hear from anyone else on the commission if there were any other items. We kind of want to make sure we hear everything as we kind of take into account what we can do. I know broadly speaking, that kind of hits the.
Yeah, I guess I would support the idea that especially there were sediment erosion control concerns of mine, given how you will have neighbors downstream of this construction. I like the idea that there is already the required 100-foot buffer. So that's obviously built into the watershed overlay. So we can poke around that possibly if we'd like. I definitely do like the idea that at least more measures during construction would be in place and more enforced. I just feel like that would save you guys some headaches too when you're
Right.
when you're building it, given, it's kind of the last undeveloped spot and the water will flow by a lot of folks as it makes its way. And I don't want it to make its way, and we don't want silted up water, right? So
No, we're, yes, conscious and cognizant of that concern, given how, the water flows and just that there will be a lot of attention on this. You know, once land disturbance starts occurring out here, everyone's going to kind of refocus on what's going on here. So from a, an erosion control standpoint, I think certainly double sill fencing, detaining, I guess, during construction up to the 25-year storm. I think we also looked at some of the design standards and sensitive watersheds for the sediment basins. So I think those, let's see. Also, again, we were looking at obviously the Strickland Road case, but yeah, those were kind of the erosion control measures. In terms of kind of post-development, again, Peter's done some analysis on kind of SEM sizing. I think we're comfortable going to the 25-year storm event in addition to the 2 and the 10.
I think that just one small thing for the sediment and erosion control piece that the Strickland Road case committed to that I think is, better than double silt fencing and more meaningful is just limiting the amount of graded land at a time, limiting the amount of exposed soil at a time. So looking at mass grading limitations in the construction process, I think would be.
Yeah. I mean, my sense is, and Peter can correct me if I'm wrong, but just given the nature of how this will work from a, and given the number of, the smaller number of units, right, is that kind of grading of the road is going to take place at one time. And as a part of that, grading for, on either side of the road for the developable area is probably all going to take place at the same time. Just, I think there's a different way to do it. Now, if there's anything else you want to speak to in terms of kind of how it needs to be graded.
Yeah, just given the topography. I'll point.
Yeah.
Don't use that.
No, either way.
I'm old, so these things always, whoops, see that? I told you. I just wanted to let you know, right now, there's a stormwater discharges right here coming down on the site as well as here. So that offsite water is going to be bypassed, and right now it goes to a kind of a natural drainage feature that runs through the site. So there's actually we'll have to build a culvert for that water, that bypass water to run through and get underneath the street. But in order for this to be graded properly, and then obviously we've got to capture all our built upon area and bring it to the stormwater, it's going to be very difficult to stage the grading. So I'm just gonna let you right now, our plan is to grade it all in, at one time.
I do want to see if, it has been 25 minutes here talking, learning a lot. Appreciate you guys taking the time. If there's any consensus at the table around what we may want to suggest, and Samantha's got some great options. Is there any consensus or discussion around that, and or questions for staff as well? Ben's here, so. I am trying to move us, so, yeah. Any further discussion?
Just have one quick thing, and I'm sure this is often part of the discussions you've had with the Bentry, but there's no concern about anything impacting the neighbors that have border with this.
Yeah, so where this goes, kind of site, make sure I'm kind of getting the discharge point right, probably right in here. No, it goes here, then goes up this way, right? Okay. So there's already kind of a platted 60-foot wide on either side of kind of that stream feature as it leaves the site. So there's a pretty significant distance, right, from top of bank to where anything can happen on those individual lots. And so we check obviously all the structures, et cetera, are out that 60-foot buffer area. So I think 120-foot wide, again, for that feature is, you know, sufficient for kind of accepting what's coming off here, additional that will come off of here. I mean, everything from this side, and as Peter mentioned, from down here as well, is kind of flowing out there today.
All right.
I like the DSSW standards, sure, but, and that goes up to 20 acres, so it sounds like you would be under that.
We would be under that. We're like
With your mass grading, yeah.
Yeah.
But those requirements is not real small, but it does make it in the 25-year for your erosion control basis.
Yeah, we're aware of the sensitivity of where we're developing and we're cognizant of it. We want to do the right thing. So there won't be any issue in terms of doing some enhanced erosion control.
Believe we may have desire to make a motion.
If, this sounds good to others, I think I would like to make a motion to, given this conversation, have SMAC just write something, a message to council saying that we had this conversation, kind of acknowledging the conditions that we just discussed generally and how we would like to see something in that category, something in that genre, and just communicate that to council, which I think would assist your request to get the, to get it pushed down the road for a little bit. to consider this.
Absolutely. And I can kind of send the language, whether it's to Ben or someone else, kind of in the next, we'd like to do it before Tuesday, May 6th. So you all can kind of make sure that what we said we would do, that we're willing to do, send it to Ben just from a actual condition language standpoint. I mean, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're kind of using a lot of the language for these types of things from the Strickland Road case. So.
And I think that's, we may not have time as a group to approve the language.
Right.
So I think the motion may be that we are going to put forth the idea that there's been this conversation, there are some ideas out there, and we're putting it to council that when you come back on the 20th, you will have acknowledged these conditions in a more formal way, that some of them may be, so I just don't think by the 6th we'll be able to get. And I think the part of the motion will be that Samantha may go to council. And we've talked about that or not? Would you say that?
I think if there's gonna be a deferral, we can figure out if we
Then
need
we
that,
can-
that certainly
Yeah.
went on the 20th. We can work out those details.
If you're just gonna kick it on the 6th, then that gives us,
Yeah, I mean, I think what my intention would be, kind of so that council's understanding of what we're intending to do. I would communicate with them, hey, we're asking for a deferral so that we can add these conditions and kind of clearly identify public access easement over the multi-use path. And then kind of these conditions that we've talked about today, so that everyone knows what we're planning to do. But if there needs to be any kind of wordsmithing after the 6th, our actual draft conditions aren't due until that Friday, which would be the 10th, or the 9th. Yeah, the 10th. So if Ben wants to circulate, what I sent him to other folks, and there's any kind of wordsmithing or things that felt like they need to be done, we kind of have until that Friday also to make any revisions.
Well, I guess I could reiterate the motion. I'll make a formal motion to, as a committee, as a commission, to relay to the council in the letter that we've had this conversation, we've discussed some conditions, and that we'd like to see some stormwater conditions in the next iteration of the proposal and support the deferral until May 20th.
do we need to write a letter or do we need to just tell our counselor that? Like, I mean, I'm just trying to eliminate some of the conversation, so.
That there's
like,
an opportunity.
At this point.
That comes through on the 6th, because they're gonna say we want to add these specific conditions, that I can touch base with you guys, and say, hey, is there anything before that Friday, we need to do, if there's any changes that need to happen, I'll make sure it's with, maybe we can, make sure to chat on Wednesday.
Okay.
And schedule that.
If I could comment just on process too. So that's a quick turnaround, right? We would need, we can vote online by email, for example, but for the commission to take a formal vote and send something the council, we would need a majority of the commission members before that time to acknowledge they would support that specifically in order for that to be a representation of the commission. Now, individual members could still comment individually as part of the public hearing process, but just want to clarify that the conditions are due Friday, probably by Thursday of next week, which is 2 days after the council meeting. We would need all of that email acknowledgement from at least the majority of the commission.
And really, we're voting on, at that point, via email on conditions we're going to put forth, because that's really all we're going to stand up and say, yeah, we would recommend they add these to their case. Because, okay.
Yeah, I think just from a timing process, so we're on the same page, so what I am planning to do is to get Ben in, or whoever else, in draft form, the conditions that we are willing to add to the cases that we kind of covered here by, tomorrow morning. One, just so we can demonstrate that we said what we're going to say in advance of the council meeting on the 6th. I'm also going to kind of communicate that to council as well, that we are asking for a deferral so that we can add these conditions. So hopefully then we'll have that condition language by tomorrow. And then we have until the next Friday to actually submit in draft form. And then we actually have a couple days to even make some technical corrections after that if we need to. So I don't know how that lines up with
That's better.
what votes you want to take when, but that's kind of.
That gives us a little freedom. And I think the motion.
We need a motion now?
Yeah, I don't know
Is that
what you're saying.
We don't need a motion.
It's just an informal, yeah, so, yeah, I don't know, we need a motion. Yes.
If I could make one other comment, just a process comment, if I could.
Yeah.
So, tomorrow is the deadline to sign up for public comment for May 6th. If someone would want to speak either individually or on behalf of commission at the May 6th, I just want to make sure that's clear. You might not have seen the conditions that are being offered
Right.
before that deadline.
We still may want to have someone sign up just in, as a, just in case, whatever. So,
Yeah, it just, again, nuance of a process. So when we go to the public hearing on the 6th, we are going to, in addition to the deferral, we would be asking council to hold open the hearing, right? If they were to close the hearing, they kind of have to make another decision to reopen it on the 20th. But I think our request would be to hold open the hearing. So again, it will still be listed as a public hearing item where folks can sign up to speak on that item for the meeting on the 20th as well.
okay.
Well, I'm happy to sign up tomorrow to be our point person on the 6th. And hoping you get a deferral and move to the 20th.
No motions at this time, just, yeah. So we appreciate you guys both being here and explaining the case.
Thank you all for,
Appreciate it.
again, y'all's, input and your focus on cases in these important areas. So thank you all very much.
Thanks, Wayne, for your assistance. Counselor Jones, thank you. Okay, so now we have the stormwater staff update matters of importance as well, so. Post those.
Okay, thank you. I have some staff updates that I would like to announce. First, let me welcome Kinley Rajman to the asset management team. Kinley is here with us today as a new engineer. In a role, she will focus on MS4 asset management, serve as the liaison with the stormwater maintenance team. She joins us from a consulting firm where she's been working as an engineering designer since 2022. She's a graduate of NC State with a bachelor's degree in biological and agricultural engineering. And we're excited to have Kinley as a member of our team. Welcome, Kinley. Appreciate it. Another new team member, I'd like to welcome Matthew Church to the Stormwater Project Inspection Team as a senior engineering specialist. Matthew comes to us from a local engineering firm where he was a field technician conducting construction inspections, materials testing, ensuring compliance with project plans and specifications. He has 8 years of field experience and graduating from NC State in 2016 with a BS in environmental science. Welcome, Matthew. Glad to have you here. And lastly, I would like to congratulate Sherry Smith on her promotion to the Asset Management Supervisor starting on May 5th. Sherry will be overseeing the conveyance, dams, and stormwater control measure asset management programs. She has over 20 years of experience in asset management and planning work. She is currently serving as the Watershed Planning Senior Engineer. She has a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from West Virginia University and a master's degree in environmental engineering from Virginia Tech. And welcome or congratulations, Sherry, on your new role. Okay, moving down to a few high priority topics. Just briefly, Stormwater did make our budget presentation for FY26 to City Council on April 7th. And that was good questions, good discussion, very well supported by council based on the questions and the discussion. So no vote at this point, other than they approved us to do some testing on the billing system with Raleigh Water and to notify our largest customers 250 of a potential pending rate increase. So that's what we're doing right now in conjunction with Raleigh Water. Our final budget then will be a part of the overall city budget that's presented to council by the city manager on May 20th. So good support so far. On April 15th, City Council approved Stormwater's recommendations for our next round of on-call consulting services. That included 18 qualified firms for 5-year master services agreement contracts in various levels of areas of consulting expertise. So staff is moving forward with developing and negotiating those master service agreements. That will be a majority of our work for the next 5 years. We had a very successful Earth Day event on April 25th. Thank you for Chair Graham Smith coming and making the awards on the Capture Arts contest. Lots of excited kids receiving those awards, some selfies for the big day. So it was really a lot of social media, So great, really great event. Good turnout this year overall. And thanks to the stormwater team, its sustainability team, parks team, lots of city staff involved in making that event happen.
Real quick, the Environmental Advisory Board gives out kind of a collection of awards, but they also give out the award, the big award, every year, and that's the RESA, Raleigh Environmental Steward Award or something.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So it's kind of one who's given a legacy of commitment to the city and doing things in an appropriate way. And River Taylor was the recipient this year, so it was awesome to see him get that. Well,
absolutely. Yes, very well deserved. Yep. And
I don't know who nominated him.
The stormwater team nominated, and I'll thank Ariel. I'm not sure if Ariel's here today, Michelle, but she helped put together the nomination for her.
Awesome. Great to see.
And she didn't have to stretch the truth. It was all, all accurate. Quick update, staff, transportation staff gave an update to City Council on the city's loose leaf collection program. And so that is being discussed if there's potential options. Right now, the city of Raleigh does have a very high level of service for loose leaf collection in residential neighborhoods. And there's some discussions for changing that. The reason I bring it up here is a significant part of that collection is funded by Stormwater. Stormwater funds half of the trucks and equipment that's used for that loose leaf program, as well as we dedicate a number of staff members that are stormwater maintenance staff that serve in other functions that are pulled off for 4 months of the year, 4 to 12 months, to do the loose leaf collection program. So there are certainly implications to stormwater staffing, maintenance, staffing, and availability. So that's why we are watching closely what happens with that program.
And sorry, I may have just missed that. But it was at the council table at the wish of council or at the wish of transportation department having a conversation or?
I may defer to our liaison. I believe it was a question that maybe came up at a retreat or some other question, that was, the council requested more information. Is that correct?
About ending the program, yes, that was direction from council to ask, not to end it, but to ask what the options were due to a lot of the budget listing questions. So we did budget listing around the city, and in all 5 districts, it was mentioned, not on, I think they, residents just said they want to get rid of this. And we were all like, wait, what? Okay, well, let's talk about it then. So that was the signal we gave in order to discuss it. I did have a quick question. Can you remind us of the yearly fiscal impact that program has financially? Like, I don't remember that number.
I don't know that number off the top of my head. It would be in the council, board docs. I do know that, we have done some financial evaluations based on city works, and then it's on the order of about $4 million a year in terms of labor and equipment impacts to operations, existing operations. But there was some additional financial information, I think, provided for different levels of service and the financial implications of those.
Because that was in an email that came out. There was like 3 or 4 different options for funding and level of work adjusting.
There were 4 different options. We've been talking about it now at CACs. We've been receiving a lot of feedback. And it's not one side or the other. It really is a mixed bag. I would say, depending on the district, I think one of the companies had reached out to both Councilor Silver and I because we have the most tree coverage in our district, so we would be most impacted. And so I'm hearing a lot of, don't cut my service, don't cut my service. Whereas other districts maybe not having that same feeling. So no decision is scheduled. There is no vote planned at the moment. We are still in the fact-finding phase. And I think Councilor Patton's done a phenomenal job of really articulating what those options are and it's helping us all forward the same email. So we're all saying the same things to our constituents. I don't want this to be a fear because we do understand that I have 85-year-old residents who cannot typically go and do get rid of it, but what are the options so that we can help? A big thing that we say to residents when they email us is the impact on other projects. So we always bring up that staff is being reallocated for their job for 4 months, where they can be doing that, whether that's through privatization of the model or reduction. So we are not there yet. There's no decision, but I just wanted to keep you updated on what we're talking about, and we haven't had anything beyond that conversation.
Last question, why does that burden fall on stormwater and not solid waste?
It's shared. So it is
I'm just
about
curious.
half of the equipment and a third of the labor. The stormwater argument is that loose leaf collection is beneficial in terms of nutrient reduction, right? Where that might normally get washed down the storm drains. It also helps with maintenance of the catch basins by picking up those leaves. It reduces the amount of leaves and debris that get washed into the catch basin itself, making subsequent maintenance of the stormwater system lower. So that's the argument as to why stormwater is involved in that.
Seems like it'd be way more efficient being housed.
And it's actually led right now by the Transportation Field Services Group, Transportation. The solid waste has the container collection program, yard waste container, which is separate from and distinct from the loose leaf collection. When I say loose leaf collection, that's where they bring the big vacuum trucks down and suck the leaves up. That's separate than the solid waste program that has the yard debris, which has the container that's picked up.
Just piggybacking off of that, I was thinking along the same lines because I think the fact that stormwater runs it is a recognition that this is in large part because of nutrient reduction, and that is important. And so I just wonder if that's part of the public conversation, if that could be part of the public conversation, like, hey, this is about more than just picking up leaves. It's actually about keeping, our waterways free of nutrient pollution, which is important for excellence.
And I'd say that from why I was watching, out of town, so I did not hear that. I may have missed it, but I will make sure that I uplift that as part of the conversation as well. A lot of it that I want to highlight, one last thing, is when you bring up the yard waste, it's to remind residents that we're not saying where there's no option for looking at leaves, we're saying they're different. So instead of waiting for the twice a year, you can put your leaves in your yard waste container every other week and still get that service and not have them sitting out for 3 months, waiting for service. So it's really an education component that we're trying to figure out how do we do that, but I will definitely add that into the conversation. I appreciate that.
This is something that I know, I think this is, it's kind of, it's a one little bullet point on this discussion, but I think it really has an impact just both financially, both resource, financially, staff, timing, equipment, and also just the environmental impacts. And I feel like that's a huge education, if you were putting them in the street versus waiting. I wonder if it's possible to maybe have a sidebar on this and how stormwater can maybe help with that discussion or not, but in some way, I feel like if it's just a council discussion, all these people are this is a good opportunity to kind of get that momentum and provide the education. I'm not sure what that might look like, but maybe we could have an offline conversation or something
It
else.
could be like a one pager.
Yeah,
Just benefits.
right, or just, yeah,
Wow.
something to say, not just a bullet, because I feel like we could talk about this for another hour, even of all this, because there have so many implications and benefits, but,
Great idea.
I was just gonna mention alternatively, you can mulch the leaves in place, and that's nutrients for the trees, and I think a lot of people, that just gets lost.
Right. Well, this guy's about 2 or 3 years ago, we had a little more of a drawn out presentation on this topic. I believe you guys talked about some of that, but
Yeah.
it's probably right before joint, or right around the same time. Yeah, so.
Yeah, let us know if there's any more information that we can provide.
Yeah, it caught our attention because it was on the agenda, on the council agenda, and we're like, wait a minute, why? We know stormwater is involved, right? Right. So, yeah, good, thank you.
Thank you. I'll just point out the link in the agenda for events related to stormwater public meetings. We do have some coming up. The Rocky Branch Walnut Creek watershed study will be coming up. And then long list, I won't go through the details of notices prior to construction, but as mentioned, we are ramping up the amount of construction stormwater is doing fairly significantly, and we'll continue to see that now moving forward with our capital improvements plan expanding. That's all I have. Thank
Were
you.
these all planned? None of these were like reactive emergency things?
These are all planned, correct.
Thank you. Okay, any questions for Wayne? We'll move on to the rainwater rewards projects. We have 3 cases, 2, I'd like to think through as kind of the consent agenda. And then the third one, I'm gonna have to recuse myself from, but that is a much lengthier conversation anyways, so I will exit the stage. But I think want to just tee Justin up for he's gonna have a lengthier discussion on the 1924 Capitol Boulevard case, so. With that, the Frank Street and the Rose Lane, smaller residential projects, project cost in that $10,000 to $12,000 range. Do we have questions for staff or want to have a discussion about? Maybe we want to anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve both of those.
Gosh, motion, Nicola, makes a second. All in favor? Okay. All right, with that.
Yeah, thanks. Good afternoon, everyone.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, my apologies. I think it would be appropriate to vote for a recusal if you give a brief
Oh, okay.
basis for.
Oh, sorry, yeah. My firm did design work in the next project, so I'd like to be recused from it. So I didn't personally do it, my firm did. All in favor of recusing me? Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, thanks.
All these rules.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks. I just wanted to point out one thing here, which is pretty powerful. That funding amount at the top, the 21,000 was 500,000 at the beginning of the fiscal year. That's a lot of good work, a lot of good projects. So I just wanted to point that out. But I requested of the chair for staff to be able to make a few comments about one of our bigger projects that as of late. It's not the biggest project Raleigh Stormwater has supported in either in cost. It is the biggest amount of treatment area that we've been able to to capture. So I just wanted to run through real quickly a couple data points and information to share with you, with the commission for your consideration prior to your vote. The first is that 2 years ago, with SMAC feedback, there was a push to set up 100% funding mechanism for projects for low-income families and for nonprofits. And we also have a rental contingent there. This is a nonprofit, so this project is eligible for 100%. They would otherwise be eligible for 90% because they're right next to the Pigeon House branch. And so the Office of Sustainability is in support of this program and in support of supporting nonprofit projects. And so I want to lead with that. Yeah, and then secondly, as I mentioned, Pigeon House branch is the property line. It is on the creek. This is a TMDL watershed. It's an impaired watershed, and it is a lot of impervious surface that flows down through a pipe into that creek. So, or surface flows downstream and go pipe into the creek. Third, as you may be aware, and some of y'all were briefed on by Sherry, who stood up just a minute ago, she conducted with a consultant a watershed study for Pigeon House Branch. And they modeled from a water quality standpoint the entire watershed and identified 6 properties where GSI would be the most impactful. And this is one of those 6 properties. And so for R3 to get an opportunity to move forward on this is a big deal from a lot of different directions. It's treating nearly 3 acres of impervious surface, mostly the roof. And as your notes will show, there is a 3 series of cistern systems wrapped around the building to capture that roof runoff, and then a rather large fire retention rain garden I'm scared to hit it after in the green area in the photo to the west. The fire retention capture some of the parking lot runoff. Yeah, we did, the SNAP tool generates gallons per year captured by these projects. And that output was over 2 million gallons per year are going to be captured by what's proposed here. All the water captured in the cisterns are going to, it's for detention. They're not going to be trying to use that much volume in irrigation. It's for detention, and all of the passive drawdown will go to vegetated areas. The plan has a detail for each system on how that they're going to deploy and implement that passive drawdown so that infiltrates into the ground. Signage will be present as part of this project. Presumably, or at least at one location at the fire retention near the planter beds in the front of the property. But they're also considering signage by the volunteer check-in, which is on the north side of the building next to that cistern system. So that when folks check in, they go by this. And there's stats on the website. I'll let you look at the food bank's website, but the number of students and volunteers that go through this facility on a daily basis and on a yearly basis to be exposed to these features and this signage is pretty remarkable. And I want to maybe end on this. As you notice next door, that's a familiar property to the commission and to the Raleigh Rainwater Rewards Program. They've done 2 phases, pretty substantial GSI projects there. And it's because of the success and the output and products that they put in the ground and how that has benefited that property, that this property is interesting. So we not only have built relationships that have facilitated it, but we have examples that are literally down the hill that we can point to that work there. So I have a couple more points, but I'm gonna leave it at that. I'll take any questions about the process, the project, or what was expected for them moving forward. Yes, ma'am.
Did you say that there were any, or they had to remove any of like the parking area? Did you?
Yeah, I didn't mention it, but they will be removing several parking spots. Please, all right, there we go.
Yeah.
All right. So the fire retention is going to cut into some of this pervious area that you see. And then we'll come up along here. So I'd say it's 8 to 10 parking spots there that will be removed and the footprint will be utilized for the bioretention.
Sorry if I missed it, but did you say what the nonprofit, what's happening in that building?
Oh, it's the food bank. I'm sorry, I failed
You
to
might have
mention.
said it, but.
I failed to mention that. It is a food bank of central, is it north, the eastern and central North Carolina. In the stats, which Stephen's credit here, 35 million meals distributed from this facility. It's the main center for 9 surrounding counties. So if anybody's serving the community, I have food bank serving the community. There's a lot more stats, and that's what I was referencing about their website. They have 100,000 hours served by volunteers, which translates to people potentially being exposed to these projects, working in green spaces. If you've ever driven through there or haven't driven through there, I highly recommend just to see the good work that's going on there.
You said this is like one of a handful of parcels, that's term property that were identified that would be beneficial. Was this something that you also mentioned that was kind of the knowledge of what was already done? Was this kind of an outreach to them to say that this is a possibility? Is this kind of a benefit of that work? Or
That is a good question. Sometimes I can never put a pin on exactly where it comes from. I would say there was a good relationship with the property owners here. And they're in conversation with these folks because of where water flows. There is a good relationship with the design firm that did this and several other projects. There was the large cistern project at Brookside recently. They were involved in that. So you have conversations on multiple levels. And then when I don't remember his title, it's the president or the CEO or one of the heads of the food bank reached out with a phone call. It could just be a culmination of all those relationships. But I don't think there was a formal outreach effort in response to the watershed plan and presence. So
and that's great. And just the spreading and having that awareness, I think is great. I just wondered, it's on a side note of what, for the other properties as well, but we'll focus on one at a time.
Yeah, maybe we'll move south to the.
Wayne County School, yeah.
But so the team's going to.
Yeah.
Sherry mentioned that's another one of the 6. So there's a lot of good work amongst the water quality team that is really chasing things with Wayne County Public Schools. So hopefully making some inroads there.
Last question, sorry, I know there's kind of a higher price tag on this one. Do you mind, and also before we're gonna run down the number from all the other great projects that we've been able to support, do you mind talking about where the funding would come from to support this if it wasn't for?
Oh, sure. And to be honest, that was my last point. I was gonna make, but I was like, I'm just gonna let it lie. Poor choice by me. Good question by you. So yeah, 2 points to that. One is as from feedback from the commission and with support from management, we have increased our annual budget to accommodate projects like this. Just a few years ago, our annual budget was $250,000. It's up to $500,000 to be able to support these. Second question, you're correct. We have spent our funding for this fiscal year. This is what will happen next is this will need to go to city council. Prior to approval, it will be the next fiscal year. So we are using next year fiscal year budget for this. So this would come out of fiscal year 26. And city council would probably not see this till July post budget approval. So what y'all would be doing today would just recommend it for approval.
Sure.
And then no funds are necessarily encumbered until the future date, it's almost time perfect, to be honest.
So it's like 45%, 50% of the next year's budget.
Correct. So yeah, 2/5. It'll be about 2/5 of it. You're right. We're comfortable with that. I'll speak for the team. We're excited about that. It's a great kickoff to the year, and projects like this typically will take 18 months for them to probably move through everything, get everything in the ground, get their as-bills together. So we're poised to handle that and have available funding for next year.
And just a clarification, Justin, so 90% of that total would come from the rainwater rewards funding. The incremental 10% would come from the sustainability fund or the 100% subsidy portion.
Pending
That
budget.
helps.
Yeah.
And so that we've set that up like that so that we can get the most out of this additional funding. You could see that we wouldn't even be able to support this project if we didn't, so.
Yeah, we should go ahead and make your motion and finish out whatever vote, and then we'll, before.
I move that we recommend approval. Council.
Second. All those in favor? Going to the rescue grant?
Yeah, let me just make a quick comment. If I'm not mistaken, this organization lost billions of dollars. So I really feel good about.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, a double yes.
Thank you all for the.
Yeah, thank you.
No, you don't have to say I'm not gonna go for it.
Oh, no. Nobody was. Okay, so we're moving on to the next item.
All right, hello again. Me and Laura Allen here are going to talk to you about our private stormwater control measurement maintenance program. And for any questions of a financial sort, we don't have a slide specific for him here, but he's here to answer your questions. So essentially, just want to bring you guys kind of up to date on some recent legislation that's been going on and just give a broad overview of kind of our SCM maintenance program, which if you're old enough, you remember back when it was called BMDs and now they're called SCMs. So the SCM maintenance program. And Laura actually put together some real good pictures from some of her maintenance inspection reports where you can see before on this side and after on this side. And you can kind of see some of the maintenance stuff that people run into every year that they need to fix and make sure they maintain. And it makes a big difference once they do maintain them. So real quick overview of the SCM program. Basically, this is here because of the new space and nutrient strategy, which is statewide for the Neuse River Basin. And it's also part of our overall stormwater system for our EPA and S4 permit. So essentially with the new space and nutrient strategy, anytime you add impervious and it gets to a certain level, you have to add a stormwater device to treat for that stormwater, either for the pollutants or for the rate of runoff, or it can be both. And so you can have SCMs that are water quality control, you can have SCMs that are rate of runoff control, or you can have some that do both. And just like I said, it's part of the city's overall system, which means being part of our overall system, we have responsibility for ensuring their maintenance in perpetuity. So if they are compliance-based regulatory, then they have to be maintained pretty much for the lifespan of whatever. And a lot of these devices have anywhere between a 15 and 30-year lifespan. So they even have to last beyond that and have some modifications made to, which we're running into now. So our program is about 20 years old. So job security for a little bit for me, a lot for Laura. So maintenance is not going away anytime soon. As part of this maintenance program, so our stormwater regulations as part of the new spacing program came into effect in 2001. In 2012, we started something called the 24% payment process. So essentially, the developer would pay 24% into a general fund that the city would maintain. And this was the time of permitting. So this would be before the device was out there on like the ground. And it was kept in the general fund to be used in case of severe emergency, like there was a abject failure of these devices, and that's usually defined as more than a third of the cost of the device. And so it would basically give the city like a pot of money to use in the event of a widespread disaster or something like that, to help these private SCNs get back on their feet. And then we could get that money back to assessment or something over 10 years, things like that. But the thought process was back in 2012 is that the city wouldn't necessarily have a lot of loose funds if we had a widespread disaster. We'd be spending them on roads and things like that, and like water treatment plants and things like that. So, and just like I said in the previous slide, per the city's MS4 permit, the city is ultimately responsible to maintain these devices and make sure they're working. That is, the EPA deems that as our responsibility that we have privatized, but at the end of the day, it is our responsibility. Right along with it, in 2021, if you follow the State General Assembly, they kind of really got after development regulations, and it seems to be 2021, they really got after it. They made a section basically for in the general statute that spoke to private development regulations, and not to speak for the state legislature, but they were looking to see more of the same across the entire state. They didn't want to see a lot of differences between like the local governments, and they wanted to see some sort of statewide compliance and what that would look like. So they consolidated like a lot of their previous statutes into the North Carolina General Statute 160D. So you'll hear a lot of development attorneys and stormwater people talk about 160D. You're in 160D. As part of this, they did do a change a couple years after that prohibits local government from requiring the owners to privately maintain stormwater control projects from contributing to a fund, like I just mentioned. That was the 24% fund, which started in 2012. So essentially in 2023, per statewide order, Raleigh was prohibited from collecting that fund anymore. So in the fall of 2023, we stopped collecting those 24% fees. Continuing, although it did mention maintenance, so to their credit, they did actually reference maintenance, and they did say that it is the responsibility of the private owner to maintain their device, and also we can require that 10% of the SCN construction costs be saved by those private owners in the first 5 years, and they have to kind of show that to us. And that's held in account solely for the purpose of SCN's costs. It can't be like your swimming pool account, parking lot account, or something like that.
Just a clarifying question.
Yeah.
So given this change, is it still the responsibility of the city to sort of ultimately oversee that the FCMs are functioning on private property?
It is. So yeah, that didn't go away. So the state changes kind of did what they did, and our EPA MS4 just requirements stayed the same. So we have a lot of recommendations now that staff checks on and implements as far as for savings plans and things like that. License. Now, another part, like I said, this went effective in 2023, and it was further clarified with a section of this bill. If you've ever done these work with North Carolina general statutes, something that I learned fairly recently, so you can still be as old as me and still learn something new, is that they'll put provisions in the actual bill that won't make it into the statute. So you have to read through the whole bill to see what's in it. So part of what's in this House bill, but is not physically contained in the general statute, is about the refunding of the 24% that we've taken up since 2012. Essentially, we are allowed to, I think this is my last slide, correct me if I'm wrong. We are just required to make previously collected SCN funds available to owners, but for necessary maintenance. So essentially, we don't just give you that money back to kind of take care of like the parking lot and the pool fund. You're taking it back to take care of your SCN maintenance, and that's actually pretty clear in the House Bill 488. So what that did was we had to create a process that, and at a staff level, we'll be funding this fund that took into account that they were using it for the SCN maintenance, and that's what passed it off to us now.
Great. So, our reimbursement process that we came up with, the
main purpose of it was to comply with 160D 925-13B, which stated that we now had to make these funds that we had previously collected available to SEM owners. As Ben was speaking to, it's very explicit in the statute that that was for necessary inspection, maintenance, repair, replacement, or reconstruction costs on the SCM. So before we get into our process a little bit, to talk a little bit about SCM inspections and the numbers that we have in Raleigh. Currently, the SCM inspection staff has 3 full-time members. We just filled our 3rd position in February of this year. There are over 2,600 privately owned and maintained SCMs in Raleigh and about 144 publicly owned, ones the city takes care of. Those SCMs are spread across about 1,360 sites that have those annual inspection requirements. So every year, we're expecting to receive about 1,360 annual inspection reports that are showing that these devices have been maintained and are functioning. To put that into perspective of these maintenance accounts that we have out there that are now to be made available, we have about 900 funded maintenance accounts currently. So not all of our sites have money available to be refunded, but about 900 of them do. So our reimbursement process, we decided that the best way for staff to make sure that this money was being used for maintenance and repair and reconstruction was to have the request for reimbursement submitted at the time of the annual inspection. That's when our staff is reviewing those reports to make sure that that maintenance is occurring and that those devices are functioning. So in order to request a reimbursement, the SCM owner needs to provide proof of expense for that repair, maintenance, reconstruction. And we also decided that inspection costs were applicable. In addition, they also need to provide a completed reimbursement form. And so that just provides information on the property owner, who the money is getting reimbursed to, so we can confirm all of that information. So when we are reviewing the annual inspections and these reimbursement requests that we get, we are looking to see that the annual inspection report is acceptable. Like I said, that we are in agreement, it's maintained, it's functioning. We are also making sure that they've provided the reimbursement request form as well as their expense proof. And then we are also looking to see that it appears that the work that they are saying they've done has been done. So I included some photos here that are from a report that we received that is showing some repair that was done. Try the light thing. So this curb inlet up here goes to an underground detention SCM. As you can see, the curbing was cracked and it was preventing any water from getting to that curb inlet. So no detention happening there. They provided some photos in the report showing during the repair and then showing after it has been repaired. Water is now reaching the curb inlet. So we want to make sure that that aligns with their expense proof. If all of that information is confirmed and looks good, then we forward all of that information onto our fiscal team over here in his group, so they can process the reimbursement, which can take up to 2 to 3 weeks.
And just for how it works, not speaking. That's mainly until we get to our account section to cut the check, 2-3 weeks. You're splitting the check. It usually takes that long to get the city to cut the check or something like that.
And how, the 900, like, how are they different from all of
So in 2021 is when we had to stop collecting that 24% payment. So those 900 are the properties prior to that, where they were contributing to a 24% payment. So the difference is sites after that didn't have a 24% payment come in. And then I believe there was a bit of a time period where we were only requiring sites that had shared SCMs. So where there's multiple properties involved with one particular SCM, those were the only ones that were required to pay that 24% payment.
So prior to that 2012 days that I was earlier, you were just, if you were sharing that device between multiple property owners, aka a residential subdivision, those were the only people that were starting the reimbursement account with us at that point. And they've already been reached out to since that 2012, they to kind of get everyone back, try to work those.
them? So the 900, they know. They know.
Getting back.
There's also, just to add, there's also some that have liquidated their funds because of, any particular reason. Or the SCMs are no longer functional. So I guess they. Right.
Yeah, they're access. Those funds are ready.
Yeah, they were.
So that's why it's not exactly 1-to-1, but it's not as far off as you would think, since it was only 13 years ago, out of our 24-year-old program.
And that 24% initially in 2021 was intended,
2012.
2012, I'm sorry, it was intended to be used for kind of, did you say like emergency, kind of over and above, but not every day, kind of necessary maintenance? And so now it's being used for sort of necessary maintenance on behalf. So there's a change in how that money is kind of being used.
No, and it was more for, like I said, just the city to have a capital resource to kind of go out and fix these devices immediately, and not have to wait on the private property owners and kind of assess, because knowing a lot of our accounts are residential homeowners and things like that, they're not exactly waiting for this sort of expense to come around the corner. So.
And so the maintenance responsibility has always been on the private property owner, but ultimately with the MS4 permit, if there was a catastrophic event where there were many in disrepair, the city would have the responsibility to come in and make sure that those get functioning again. If the property owner, for whatever reason, could not do that, they weren't there anymore, the property went, defunct, then the city could step in.
Or something like that, just weird stuff like that, we could go ahead and cut through some of that. And we can still do that, and we can still assess a private property for making emergency repairs like that. It's just we don't have that capital funding source anymore. We're not.
So, speaking,
So for the,
letting people know.
yeah, so for the 900 accounts out there, first thing that is live, we have a webpage out that explains this whole process, and kind of goes through like how you get the money, what you're supposed to do for maintenance, how you're supposed to save money for maintenance and things like that. And if you go to the RaleighNC.gov webpage and you just type in SCM funds or SCM maintenance, do more work, I wrote that earlier. This will be the top hit on there. Also, we are working with our IT department and with a staff member that will be right after us to do an interactive database that can be accessed through this web portal, so you can see if you're eligible for this fund. Essentially, is our goal on that, and we are doing a direct postcard mailing to all the SCM owners by early summer of this year of all those 900 accounts to kind of just alert them that this is out there, this is possible. So we go through that, and then of course our normal emails that we have to our development just related list with developers, designers, and property managers. The property management companies are the key source to kind of get to. They manage so many residential developments.
What's the total dollar left right now?
It's
over 20.
yeah, it's over 20 million.
Can you repeat the question? I'm not sure if that came across. Repeat the question, please.
Oh, sorry. What's the total number that's in the account right now? And it's just over 20 million. 20 million. So that's it. Questions?
I had a question. I think when you were talking about, paying for inspections, do they pay the city when you go out and do the inspection? Or-
So they can use these reimbursed funds to pay for the private inspector to go out.
Or the private inspector?
Correct.
Okay, and does the city issue notices of violation if there, you do?
We do.
And are there fines?
Yeah,
Is that as well? Okay.
But
Like
yeah,
if you scroll down, you can't scroll down in that form, it tells you how much the fine is.
yeah, it does. $2,500 per day.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but yeah, it's, and I mean, and I will say that Laura and her team do a great job, because of these 1,300 sites, 2,600 devices, I mean, we'll deal with 1 or 2 contested interviews a month, which is crazy for and usually, once they send out an interview, they usually get immediate action on stuff like that, but I mean, there's always some people that drag their feet, and this group's also done a lot on the older devices, because as I said, you're getting away from the useful life of a lot of these devices, and at that point, you have to kind of have to refurbish that. Once you get to like a 20-year time period, your bioretentions need to be refurbished and media,
The perpetuity kind of gets lost in translation.
Correct, yeah, we don't get to stop when it hits its useful life, essentially.
Kind of like replacing your roof.
Yeah.
30-year, you're guaranteed to not, well, some of them say lifetime. That's 30 years, and it's similar to that. Do your maintenance on your house.
All right, any more questions?
If I could just make kind of a commentary too. So what this legislation does is, to me, it really puts the risk more back on the property owners and the HOAs, as Commissioner Whitford mentioned, to budget properly if and when this happens. So I think that is going, that will be part of the outreach too, is not only, hey, good news, you've got some funding available. Bad news, you need to be more financially prudent in terms of budgeting for this and giving the property owners and HOAs guidance on how to do that. I think that'll be an important part of this outreach.
Yeah, and that's why we kind of set up the webpage to kind of focus on that first and then talk about getting your refund second. So bring them in with the refund, but we'll make them read through the savings money from the SCO first.
And it's probably another conversation for another day, but just a sidebar. I'm very interested in the difference in maintenance requirements for different kinds of SCMs. And I'm just wondering if that's something we could talk about in the future, is lower, input SCMs versus things that require more regular maintenance and financial input.
Yeah, we could defer that if you all want to do the next meeting up to you all.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I guess, we had the opportunity, we're running about 20 minutes late. And this looks like it's a 30-minute presentation. So, conversation, so I guess we have
We could shorten it, right? So options are abbreviated version, or defer it to a future meeting and give the full-blown
Yeah,
version.
I guess,
Get as far as you can and then come back for the rest.
yeah, can we see how, do that, kind of in a speeded up version, can we see how far we go? And then as long as we, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Okay, great.
thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is a topic that's near and dear to one of my passion areas. I really enjoy the idea of making strategy operational, making it come to life. So we're going to give you an update on our stormwater business plan. This is something we've been doing for a handful of years or more, actually almost 10 years now. And it's in the SMACs, your work plan for this year, to come back as an update on this. Apologize for my voice, a little bit off today. So we're glad to be here. This all really begins though with the city's strategic plan. Our council adopted an approved strategic plan that flows into our departmental business plan, our engineering services department plan that Stormwater is part of. And then we have our stormwater business plan. And I think you're going to see a lot of natural connections with your work plan. Sure, SMAC's work plan is in support of and helps to guide the stormwater program, and then sort of vice versa. Depending on our time, we may or may not get into our data operational analytics, but we're doing a lot with data, how we're able to use data to make good recommendations for you as we report forward, and lots of good things there. So as mentioned, this starts with our city council strategic plan. It's a multi-year plan, and essentially it takes the high-level goals of the city council, their vision, their leadership, input from the community, the commissions, stakeholders, and it seeks to sum that up. What do we want to be as a community here in Raleigh? There are 6 key focal areas: arts and cultural resources, economic development and innovation, growth in natural resources, organizational excellence, safe, vibrant, and healthy community, transportation, and transit. So these are the high-level key focal areas, and sort of our umbrella for everything that we do. See a lot of connection, of course, with stormwater and growth and natural resources, but we also provide support for all of these other areas and seek to integrate them as best we can. Under each of these, there are specific objectives and initiatives at the city's strategic plan level. So we cascade that into our departmental plan with our own set of high-level objectives and our initiatives, and that also flows into our stormwater business plan as well. So again, you're going to see a lot of connections with your own work plan here by extension. So very quickly, this is our departmental business plan. We have a vision, we have a mission. You've seen ours, it's coming up next year, but actually our vision for our department is to be a leading provider of all the services that we deliver essentially in all the ways that we can accomplish that. We're dedicated to designing, building, operating sustainable and resilient infrastructure that protects and improves quality of life, supports healthy natural resources, and complements diverse and equitable growth for our community. So that's our departmental mission. Under that, of course, you've seen our stormwater mission a number of times, and that is to manage stormwater to preserve and protect life, support healthy natural resources, and complement sustainable growth. So you see that connection as we flow down from really the city strategic plan to our departmental plan to our stormwater plan. Within the stormwater plan, we have our own 4 objectives, and these are our 4 high-level ones. I'll touch these very quickly. And the work of the commission, the guidance of the commission really helps us to achieve these. So first, understand the level of service needs and expectations. How do we learn about that? What stormwater services are desired by the community? Certainly the commission is a key input to that. Understand, we build trust with the community as we prepare our budgets. Wayne just shared our budget with council a few weeks ago. Objective 2, meet and strive to exceed all local, state, and federal requirements, regulatory requirements. 3, deliver high quality, integrated, resilient, and equitable programs and services for all of our customers. So you see us doing that through rainwater rewards, through our drainage assistance projects, our capital program, our education and outreach, our asset management, our watershed planning. Take another hour to go through all the things we do. We seek to do those in a high quality, integrated way. And you see us, we seek to empower our diverse workforce, deliver these services every day. So these are sort of our key focal areas within stormwater. And I'm going to turn it over to Javier. We pulled in just a few, there's quite a few initiatives. I don't think we have time to go through them all. So we wanted to pull in just some representative ones to share with you how we connect our own mission and our own vision to initiatives that we're implementing day by day. So I'm going to turn to Javier, and then we'll see how the time goes. And Moses is going to give us an overview of our data. Thanks again for the chance to share this.
Thank you, Scott. Good afternoon. Yeah, we'll just go over real quick the initiatives, like Scott alluded to. We have, I think, over 20, almost 30 initiatives in our that are compiled within our 4 objectives that Scott just went over. We picked the ones that SMAC and the commission is familiar with, has seen them, is aligned with. You guys also provide a lot of feedback and guidance to a lot of these initiatives that we have in our business plan. Starting up with the first one, speaking of SMAC, it's part of the first objective is to work closely with the commission on our levels of services and how that corresponds to our pre-recommendation when it comes to city council. Some other ones that are also in objective number 1, it's our development of the CIP plan long term, and also the engagement when it comes to our watershed planning, resident stakeholder surveys, and identifying these specific projects. Objective number 2. This one touches on, like Scott mentioned, on the local, state, and federal regulations. These should look familiar. We're on the home stretch for a lot of these. The Stormwater Management Design Manual, I think that, official this year. So kudos to the team. SMAC had a lot of involvement in there as well with the feedback and the guidance. Seamus and Allison and Ben and team with the CRS. This was a goal of ours almost 3 years ago now, maybe 4 years ago when we put this together. Comes to fruition. David recently to get us to 5 and to 5. And then also we developed, part of the plan was to develop this floodplain management team to be a corresponding, cooperating technical community positions. Because of the plan, the positions, were approved by the city, and in full circle, you're starting to see the rewards from that now. Objective number 3, this one more it targets to, like Scott said, our projects. We look at our plan, our programs, and how they function. We complete projects, and also we emphasize here usually using our project software, which is project management software, which is eBuilder. And then you're going to see a full circle here soon. Utilize stormwater management program performance dashboard, something that's new to us, and that's the second part of this conversation, of this presentation. And then number four, a lot of those first three objectives spoke externally, right? Since we serve the community, this one mainly speaks to internally to the stormwater team, touching on the development of our employees, touching to the stormwater staff employee committee that we have meets once a month, and then also an initiative to develop and maintain regular internship programs. I don't have the number, but we have a lot of interns within the stormwater program, probably among the leaders when it comes to internship opportunities throughout the city. And then with that said, this is one part of it, right? The business plan, but now, how do we report on that? How do we track, what we're doing, right? How we're meeting these goals? And in full circle, like I mentioned, we identified that we need a way to track this, a better way to track this when we came up with this plan. Part of that was the position that would be responsible for managing that data. And, thanks to Moses, he came on board and he's, the mastermind, the subject matter expert when it comes to Power BI. So basically, grabbing all those goals, tracking and reporting them, like you're gonna see some cool dashboards now. He's gonna go into a little bit of what Power BI is, how that works if you're not familiar with it. And then we're gonna go real quick through some of the dashboards that we use on a day-to-day basis, everybody in stormwater. I'll pass it over.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Moses Mashai, and I'm performance and data analyst here for Stormwater. So as Javier mentioned, Power BI is a very powerful tool that allows us to take data and make it simple to create valuable insights. So what is Power BI? As I mentioned before, it's a powerful tool, allows you to turn data into visual reports like these. So we're able to take complex data from data sets from different data sources that I will get to shortly. We take the data, we compress it, and we create it in a way that is easier for individuals to be able to get the information that they want in an efficient manner. Be able to visualize the data in like pie charts, bar graphs, tables, whatever the data assists. And we can visualize data for individuals who are not tech savvy to be able to click certain slicers and be able to get the data they need to be able to make the decisions. And one of the underrated things about Power BI is the ability to extract reports. One of the ways that we do that is once the Power BI report is uploaded to the publishing site, individuals or team members can extract reports and be able to get that data in clear and simple manner. This is especially important for people who don't actually have the ability to get to a lot of these data sources. So one of the things in the city of Raleigh is that not everybody has access to the data sources, but we'd like to see the information to be able to, maybe they want to make the decision, or maybe they just want to look at the data. With Power BI, you'll be able to overwrite that or go over that and be able to access all the dashboards that are available in our stormwater department and be able to access that information. So what is our data source? I like to call it our sponsors. So our sponsors here that make Power BI what it is, we have a total of 6 here. eBuilder is our first one. And eBuilder is responsible for project management and our cash flow cycles go from eBuilder. CityWorks tracks and manages requests and inspections. Tyler Technology or Inagov manages permitting. Oracle, of course, manages our financial data. ArcGIS also manages data with map-like capabilities, and we'll see more shortly with that. And SharePoint, which handles our Excel files, because Power BI needs a data source to be able to connect and see these data and refresh every day. And some of the information that we have are not available on these data sources. So sometimes we have to create our own. And one of the most foundational data sets that people don't know about is Excel. Anything that has columns and rows is considered a data set. And what we do is we be able to upload that Excel file, embed it into the SharePoint, and mainly into the information. Power BI will be able to pick it up, refresh based on the refresh time, and be able to display that data on the report page. Yes.
A quick demo, quick real time, we'll just go real quick.
Yeah, so we like to have fun. So, sometimes I like to have a little gift here, spark us of attention. You don't mind going to detail overview, please? This is just one example. This is a stormwater volunteer data dashboard that you can see. We've been able to get a data set that was mostly columns and rows, and we're able to take that data and simplify it in a way that you'd be able to not only, get the information you need, but you also have the ability to filter out any particular section that you want to see. So if you want to see information by fiscal year, by fiscal quarter, you'd be able to see that. Not only that, you're also able to see trends as well. In a traditional sense, with typical data, it's very difficult to see trends unless you're just, analytic minded. But, with Power BI, we take all those numbers and other things that people don't like, and we make it a little simpler for people to get their data and information as quickly as possible so they can make their decisions. Nobody wants to be felt left in the dark when they make decisions. And a lot of times data, can be complex and it's very hard to, see everything and be able to get the information that you need. With Power BI now, you're able to, get the trends. Hey, what is the trend for this year to this year? Okay, now I can be able to see that. And if it's good, we continue. If it's not, we make the necessary changes to get back on track. All right, so here is one of the dashboards. It's that Stormwater City Owned SCM dashboard. As you can see here that we have the device type. So we took this integrated from ArcGIS. The data set with map capabilities, and one of the things that we can do with the map capabilities from ArcGIS is be able to track it here in an Esri-like map. And one of the beneficial things of that and what it's useful for is that, team members can see and track their SCMs and see how much the SCM allocation is for each device type and the ownership for each department. So that way they'll be able to see it clear cut, where we're at, what department owns these devices by clicking, of course, the filter option here, to be able to get to see that data, and then they'll be able to filter out exactly what they need. So let's say if I wanted to see the bio retention cells for stormwater, I will click here in that filter icon, select those two filters, and it will automatically filter to that information. You don't have to go and search through everything and dig through a lot of information. That takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it can be a lot of pain. For Power BI, it takes that and it makes it easier for you to get that information at a very modest pace. Another one is our stormwater drainage system dashboard. This dashboard comes from CityWorks, of course. Now, although, CityWorks is primarily used for tracking requests and work orders, some of this can be used for other things as well. As you can see here with the map, we're able to, check the close and open for these requests. And this was set up in a way for team members to be able to not only see the trends, the number of requests, but be able to track exactly what requests they entered in, see how many are open and closed, and see how many are, spread out within the city. Maybe people want to see, hey, maybe this is a request in a certain part of the city. Why is that? Or maybe, there isn't, maybe it's, evenly spread out, or the distribution can be, on and off. But you get that insight, because we're able to get visuals and map visuals and all types of visuals and enable you to make decisions correctly. And not only do we make a lot of our dashboards indoors, we also collab as well. This dashboard was a collaboration with Haventree, the Arbery project inventory, and this was built collaborators with us and Haventree, bouncing ideas back and forth to be able to create this Power BI dashboard that has a inventory of all the projects or the RD project that's coming forward and behind. So not only do you see, all the ones that's coming in, you also see the trends as well. So you get historical data and current data while it updates based on the time that, team members and the data represents. You also see here, this is also from ArcGIS. As I mentioned before, it does have map-like capabilities. So with that map-like capabilities, we're able to embed that into Esri and be able to track every time an R3 project is added to the database. Of course, with that, we're also able to get totals using our KPIs. And we also have filters as well. So you'll be able to get exactly what you want immediately. So if I wanted to type in a project type, I click project type, and it will automatically filter based on that selection. Here?
Yeah, thanks, Moses. I'll speak to the last few slides real quick. I'm embedded, thanks to Moses, into 3 of these dashboards that he's put together for us since he started. That has changed the way we do a lot of our work, just more efficient, real-time data. It's all centralized now. We don't have to go into a system and go one by one and create a report. The report's essentially done for us, and we're just, it's updating real time every day. This is our cash flow, our CFP cash flow. This one, we've been talking about it a lot as we're going to debt, real soon. We just need to have, better idea of, our schedules, our plans for these projects and when we're gonna need funding for them. So thanks to Moses, Barbara, we were able to put this together. It pulls information directly from our e-builder, and then we can see it here in real time, but we don't have to go into the actual software itself. The other one that we also have is our utility dashboard. This one is from Excel's. We basically get reports from our billing partner. And we didn't have a way to show, the growth or the trend that we're experiencing with our customers and our units. So we decided to put a dashboard together. The dashboard not only emphasizes, these overall numbers, but it also tracks, part of Matt's team, tracks our utility newfound units, I guess, throughout the city, with new properties or new parcels basically become live. And let Scott take us on.
Thank you, Javier. Moses, thank you for joining us. So just with Wayne's leadership and the stormwater team's work in our business plan from just a few years ago, we identified this whole area as something that we need to help us make good decisions. And Moses has come and joined us and look at where we are. So what I want to sum up from that was our business plan is a combination of things we want to do better with what we're currently doing. How can we do the very best with our current programs, our current projects, things like that. It's also, what do we need to do that we're not doing? We also asked the question, I don't think we've ever had this situation of, are we doing anything that we should not do? So we asked those strategic questions. How can we do better at what we're doing? What do we need to do even better to meet the city's strategic plan to really advance for the community? So we're excited about this, Moses. Thank you again, Javier. This has helped us to be stormwater smart. And with that, we'll wrap up. We can go for another couple of hours. Yes.
All of these internal dashboards and none of them are external facing.
It's a great question. Most of these are internal right now. We probably have 20 some odd.
Yes, we have about 20 dashboards that's actively updating data as we speak.
We are having those conversations though about at what point, when can we make sort of public facing dashboards? In fact, one of our early efforts in that is going to be around, we think, some level for the flood early warning program. How can we get information out in that format, as well as while we're tracking storms, working with our public safety providers. So that's an example. More and more, I think over time, we're going to be doing that more public facing. But right now, we gather a lot of information, use it internally, and that helps us with our daily work.
I just like to say, I've seen a lot of people try to use Power BI, but those dashboards are very attractive, appealing, the right amount of information.
That's the thing. That's the thing there.
Yeah. That's right.
That's also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like that.
Yeah. As you get, better at it, you tend to make it more complex because you think that's how it is. But then as you get, as you master it, you realize that people don't like complex things, right? What's the great hard behind the traditional thing, all things can be complex. So, as I've gotten feedback, I've kind of simplified it in a way that people are able to use it, more confidently and get the data that they need.
That's such a good job with that. Thank you again, Moses and Javier. We'd love to bring back more of this. Maybe there's another 17 or 18 dashboards we can share with you. This is just a sample, but we really wanted to share with you how we're looking to our city leadership, council, you all on the commission, our stormwater leadership team, and really our entire team. We all work together to come up with a plan to do the very best that we can for stormwater and also to advance the city. So we're really proud of how we do that. And data has become a key part of that, tracking the progress and showing that progress. So thank you all for this chance.
Pretty impressive, very impressive. And I think we're not afraid to see more of the, how you're making the decisions and why you're making the decisions, right? And well, these are the criteria, and this is kind of what we're using, and this, we don't need to understand all the layers, but this seems like it is a layer we can understand. And we've seen a little bit of this with the drainage assistance and things loaded in, or rainwater rewards loaded in, but some of the other criteria that you're using is very helpful for us. So thank you all for the commissioners for staying late today. I did see here a couple extra possible agenda items in the future, Scott. the idea of a loose leaf, a conversation around loose leaf, if we needed to keep a part of that, or stay abreast of that. And then Samantha noted the idea of learning a little bit about stormwater control measures, the types, plus the maintenance requirements, kind of, and or the certification approach or something like that. So that's.
It's also going to do a problem with the application.
Yeah, when you would do it, kind of thing.
Yeah, under what circumstances you would use this, and then the chaining of, if you have more than one type of ice out, and just sort of a lay understanding when we're hearing presentations, how they work, I really like that.
Yeah, Josh be leading that Senate.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that would be very helpful. And thank you for that. We are looking at starting our work plan work in June, so just be prepared for that. We'll start some visioning. Scott will probably facilitate a conversation to start that. I don't know if we'll be here or if we'll be offsite like we were last year. We were at the Crowder Center, so we'll figure that out. We will we'll take a pause also in July, so we will probably not be meeting in July, but we'll make the official meeting, recommendation at the next meeting. With that, anybody want to make a motion to close? Gotta get home. Josh. Second, and all in favor? Thank you much. Thank you.